So we were looking at model view controller as an interface. I mean, using it to create an interface. And I believe we got through this much stuff last week. The last thing I believe we got through was this UDP send and UDP receive, and you can use UDP sends and receives to send data between different patches. If they're built as separate applications, you might not be able to use sends and receives if they're in separate apps, and you would have to use this kind of UDP receive to get the information into that separate application. Also, if you needed to communicate between different computers on a network, this would be the way you'd do it. You could send from UDP send and receive on the different computer, as long as you send it to the right IP address. And if you're sending it to an outside computer, you wouldn't say local host. You would put the IP of that computer, like 192.168.1.101 or whatever the IP of where you're sending it is. But so do you guys have this right here, this stuff? Does anybody not have this working?
The 7.1 from the website.
Oh, I can't help you if you don't have anything from last class. That's not my fault. But yeah, so let's just do another one of these really quick so that we can test that it's going to work. So we can make another UDP send object and put it on a different port, send it to a different port. So instead of 10,000, make it something like 5,000. And let's just send a message like test. And then we can have a UDP receive object on the same port. And the message should come out. Yes, and it does this time because I got it right. So these could be on different computers if you wanted to use an IP address. So that's great. So how could we use this kind of model to create like a movie player with different effects? Well, we could have these sliders over here. We could have them sending out different symbols, and you could have, what we built over here is we built the ability to change, zoom, and blur. You guys all got this, right? This stuff over here, yeah. So what this can do is this sets this message. It sets up this message of the symbol. As soon as it's not going to change until I move a slider, but as soon as I move a slider, one of the sliders, it's going to set it up the message with this symbol up here and then the 3 different values. So I could send that to a separate movie player application, and that's kind of the model view controller paradigm, is to have everything modular and separated out between your controller and your engine that's driving the video. So I could send this message to that engine and have it broken up on the other side, and route based on that first symbol where those values are going. So if I had a blur effect or a zoom effect, it would route for blur and then send those different values. In this case, 3 numbers isn't necessarily what we want, but let's go ahead and let's start building this effects movie player that can be controlled by these sliders in this way. So let's make a new file. And we're going to call this one file save as. And I would save it in your documents, Max 7 projects, class 7, or I'm going to actually make a new folder for mine, class 7. I'm going to make a new folder for each class from now on to keep things organized. And we're going to call this one 7.2 effects movie player. Or, yeah, just effects player is fine. I'm just going to say player. Okay. So, we need a movie player, first of all. So, jit.movie. And let's add some attributes to this. Let's add it at unique 1, at adapt 1, and at volume 0. At vol 0. So at unique 1, again, remember that makes it only send out unique frames. At adapt 1 means that it can adapt to, it can change its dimensions based on whatever matrix is coming into it, or what movie file. Actually, I don't even know why I put that. I think that's a default value anyway. I think that was old from last year. So we don't need that. Great, so we got our movie player. Now we're gonna need a way for the movie player to receive bangs to output its frames, and also we're gonna need a way to receive messages so that we can like change the movie or do other things. So the first thing we're gonna need is we're going to need a patcher argument, because this is going to be an external patcher, right? And so we need a way to be able to make unique sends and receives. So patcher, we're going to have a receive object. Whoops, new. Whoops. Go away. There we go. New receive object, and then a patcher argument. And then we'll call, and then put an underscore, and we'll call, put input or in. So whatever the argument is, whoops, and that's wrong. I messed it up. It needs to be pound and then 1 to tell it to say it's the first patcher argument. If you just put pound, it's not going to work. So now whatever the argument is when we instantiate this patcher, this movie player, whatever that argument is, that will be replaced. That pound 1 will be replaced with that. And we connect that to the movie player. And now we're also going to have, we want it to be able, we're going to have more than one movie player, because we're going to have like a 4-channel mixer type of thing. So we also need a way to set the port, the UDP receive port, and we can make that be a second patcher argument. So the first argument is going to be what the name of the player is, like channel 1, so that way it says channel 1 input. And then the second argument is going to be, so that we need a UDP receive. I'm spelling things wrong. UDP receive, there we go. Pound 2, because it's the second patcher argument. And so the data will come in here, and it will come in on whatever port we specify as that patcher argument. And so what we can do is that data, as we remember from this, the format is going to be a index symbol, and then whatever the various effects parameters there are for that effect, whether it be blur or zoom. And in fact, blur and zoom was just an example. We're actually going to do some real effects here in a second. So let's see. Well, one of them we're going to do is rate. So route, and this is how we'll be able to separate where those messages are going, is based on that index symbol. And the first one will be the rate. It'll have an index symbol of rate. Then we're going to also use an effect that does brightness, contrast, and saturation called BR COSA. So put BR COSA as another index symbol. We're also going to use another effect called JIT.rota, which does rotations. So we'll put rota as our third symbol. And then the final effect that we'll use is JIT.hue. So put hue as our index symbol. So if you hover over these outlets, it will tell you where it's going to go based on. So this says outputs if the input matches rate. So we can have this get sent into first a float box so we can see that rate message coming in. And then we can send that to a message that says rate $1. And that's the wild card for messages is $1. It's similar to a Pattr argument, but Pattr arguments use the pound symbol, and these wildcards and messages use the dollar symbol. And then send that into the movie player, because that's what we'll be communicating with. So why did we have to put rate back in? Well, when the message rate comes in, so here, if we want to test this really quick, let's just duplicate both of these right here. Duplicate those and send it into this route object. And you can see as I move this up and down, it routes it over there. But if you put a message down here and see what the actual output of this route is, we're sending the words rate and then the number, and all we get out is the number. It removes that word rate after it's routed. So you can use route to sort different things based on an index symbol or a number or whatever. You can also use route to just remove. If you're getting a message in that has one word extra that you don't need at the beginning, you can use route to remove that word. But in this case, we actually want that word, so we put it back in with this message down here. Does that make sense? So we're using it as a symbol over here to determine where it's coming in as where it's coming out of the route object, and then we put the symbol back in down here. That removes the symbol. And then we put it back in this message so that the movie player can understand what this 1.19 is. All right, so rate comes out there. Let's see. So we could have, we need to have an output, right? Send £1. We can just have our output be whatever the argument we choose for this. So if we choose like ch1 to call this channel 1, this will say send channel 1. So we could just hook this directly out, but what we're going to do is route it through a number of effects, and we're going to be able to we're going to want to the ability to turn on and off these different effects. Okay, so what were the effects? They were BR COSA, rota, and hue. So let's see. We need a JIT.BR COSA. We need a JIT.rota and a JIT.hue. And now we're going to want switches to be able to either go through the JIT.BR COSA object or divert around it. In other words, bypass it. So we're going to need some gates to gate our output. So we need a gate. You know, if you have a gate and you just put gate without any arguments. The default is a gate that only has one output, and it's a gate that just lets things through or doesn't. And it says 0 doesn't let anything through, and a 1 lets them through. But you can also have more than one output on a gate. If I say gate 2, then it has 2 outputs. And if I send a 0 to it, it closes both of the outputs. If I send a 1 to it, it opens the first output. If I send a 2 to it, then it closes the first output and opens the second output, like a switch that you're just routing where it's going. And then if you add a second argument, you can add an initial state. So we want, if we don't put that, then by default both of them are closed. But we want by default we want this first one to be open. So that's why I put a 1 as the second argument. Yeah. Oh, and so I have to put it in the right inlet. So on this, gate's kind of confusing because you're used to putting things in the left inlet, and that left inlet is actually whatever is the gate position, you know, whether it's closed or whether it's going to the first outlet or the second outlet. So whatever the message is comes in on the right inlet. And so then we're going to have a gate position. So we need a toggle. And if we put this toggle up, that's only going to do 0 or 1. So we actually have to be able to have it send a 1 or a 2. So we need to add 1 to this toggle. So +1. Send that to that gate position. And so now if I hit this on, then it is coming out the second output. And if I turn it off, then it's coming out the first outlet. So what that is a bypass. So you can use this as a bypass. So when this is on, it will bypass this BR-COSA effect because it will come out this outlet. So what we can do is have this outlet, outlet 2. Outlet 2 go to the BR-COSA inlet. Actually, no, this is not a bypass. It's an enable. Yeah, right? Because when you turn this on, it sends it through that outlet. Otherwise, it's going to continue on down here. And we have to let's make another gate for this second effect. And another gate below that for the third effect. And so this outlet, when it's not enabled, will go to this inlet of this gate. And the same thing for this outlet of the second gate goes to the inlet of the third gate. And then the right outlets go to the effects. But we also have to send the effects output back into the gate as well. Okay, so let's add this. Stop it. Duplicate this and bring it down here. Add that to that gate. And bring it and add this to this gate. So now we have these enables on each thing. Oh, and then you actually have to have this gets sent out and this gets sent out, so that the matrix actually leaves. Okay, so how do we get messages to each of these objects? Well, right now we have one thing going on up with this route. We have this rate thing. The next thing is we have BR-COSA. And what we can do is have our sliders on our control interface. Let me close this so it's not. We can have the sliders in our control interface send send a second symbol that we can route for to determine what parameter we're affecting on that effect. So the first symbol is what effect are we sending the values to, BR, COSA, rota, or hue. And then the second symbol will be what parameter of that effect are we affecting with this value. So we need a second route for that parameter. We need a second route for each of these. So we need to know what parameters we want to affect by these. Well, you can right click on the inlet of an object and it will tell you what messages or parameters are available for that object. And for BR COSA, it's pretty straightforward. It's brightness, contrast, and saturation. That's the BR, the CO, and the SA. So we want a brightness. So we can route. So we want to route brightness. We'll have this symbol brightness get sent out. Brightness route for saturation. Actually, no, what was the second one? It was contrast and saturation. And we just do the same thing we did here where we put those symbols back in with a message. So brightness, $1. And if this is outputs, if the input matches brightness, and send that to the BR COSA. Whoops, I need a message. Contrast, $1. And you know, what's great about Max 7 is that if you're close to one of these objects and you're making a message, it guesses that you're wanting one of the parameters of that message and gives you that fill-in. But it won't always work if your object isn't close to the other object that you're going to send the message to. It's kind of a smart context menu. And so the last one is saturation. So this message will be coming from up here, right? Because anything that routes to BR COSA will come out this outlet. So let's try, let's test this out really quick. So if we were going to send a message and it, let's see. Let me think what would be the best way to show you. Here, let's just add some sliders to these over here. Great. And then actually, let's go in and go into the inspector for these sliders and change its range over here to 1 and float.
I just can't tell which outputs you're coming from the route into those sliders. Are you coming from the first, second, and fourth one?
First, second, and third.
Oh, what's in the fourth?
Oops, you're right. I messed up.
Okay, great. All right, I'm just making sure I'm not going crazy.
Yeah, I messed up. Yeah, the fourth one is actually if it doesn't match. So if we sent some kind of rate or BR COSA and then some other weird symbol that it didn't expect, then it would come out that outlet there.
What was the range?
What?
What were we setting the range to?
Yeah, we were setting the range to just 1, a float, and make sure you have float output right here. So float output.
Range is 0 to 1.
Range 1.
Oh.
range 1. Float output. Okay. So, yes, yes?
Sorry, I changed my range to 2.
That's fine. Let's just leave it.
Click on the float output. Yeah, I did. And it did. Yeah, it did.
That's fine. I think that's what its default thing is. That's fine. I think that's because it's going between -1 and 1. Right? What is
No,
it?
I got it. I just didn't have a period.
Oh yeah, mine did the same thing. Maybe I didn't put a period also. Yeah, I see. Yeah. Okay, cool. So, if the message we're sending is BR COSA brightness 0.6, this should move that. Yeah, and it does. It moves that slider. So that's basically how it's going to work. We need to, in our interface, this is an effects player that we're building. This is not going to be the controller, right? This is more of an engine or a model if you're going with the model view controller terminology. So the controller will create this message and send it out, and then this model, this player, effects player, will interpret that, and this is how we do it with these routes messages. It's kind of a shame that I didn't get to this last week because I'm going to show you, hopefully, if we get enough time, show you an even better way to do this stuff today. This is kind of I wanted to show you this step first. Great. So we don't need these anymore. This was just to demonstrate. Whoops. There we go. I can't tell whether I'm unlocked or not because my resolution is so low. Don't need that anymore. That was just to test some stuff. So make sure you have this stuff. Let's see. I think that's all. All right. So yeah, let's just stay with that right now. I'm trying to save some time. We're just gonna deal with BR COSA. We're not gonna deal with Rhoda or Hue right now. We could do the same thing. We basically just be copying this, but routing for whatever the things are for Rhoda, which are like zoom offset and X offset, Y offset, and then, But let's just move on. So then we could have our interface. So we got that. Save this as 7.2 effects player, and actually save it also. Let's save an easier to instantiate name. Save as, and just call it simple effects player, all one word. Okay. Now make a new file, new Pattr, and save this one as 7.3 simple interface. So on this we can have a slider, right? Where this is where our actual interface is going to be. Instead of going through all that rigmarole of scaling and floating and everything, let's just put a scaling object. Scale 0 to 127 between the values -2 period and 2 period. Make sure you put those in because we're otherwise it won't treat it as a float. And we're going to use this. We're going to send this to the rate. So this will be our rate slider. So our message, we're sending it through a message that we're going to put rate. Remember, that's our index symbol. #1, and that will be the actual value. Then we send it to a UDP send, and it will be whatever port we choose for the first channel movie player. So let's put the first one on channel 5000. Make sure you don't have your whoops, we forgot to put our domain. On send we needed a domain, so let's put in localhost. There we go. Make sure you don't have that other patch open that you had something set to 5000. Make sure this is the only patch you have open right now. So we can send that there. And now we're going to actually need to instantiate that effects player that we just created, that simple effects player. So let's create that. We're gonna load it as a external patcher, right? So just start typing simple effects player, and it should pop up as darn it, where is it? It should pop up as an option, but mine isn't.
Mine either, yeah.
Darn it. Effects. Darn it. This is pissing me off. All right. I think maybe you have to save and then reload it. Save this simple interface. Close it. Let's try it again. Son of a bitch. Well, mine worked when I actually just didn't. Let me see if it works if I put. I think we renamed it as Simple Effects Player. Let me try Simple Effects Player. Yeah, it works. So for whatever reason, it's not giving me an auto fill-in. But if you just type in Simple Effects Player, if it's a gray box, it worked. Is it working? Is it not? Who isn't working for? Okay. For those of you who's not working, reopen that Simple Effects Player file, the 7.2 version, and then save it again, save as, and let's save it as something really easy, like just Effects Player. Effects, and make sure you're saving it in your projects folder in Mac 7. Okay, so just save it as Effects Player and hit save. And now come over here and just put in new Effects Player. And then you have a black box. You don't have any inputs or outputs, inlets or outlets on it because we didn't put any in our effects player. We're using unique sends and receives, right? We actually have to establish those unique sends and receives by giving us putting our Pattr arguments in there. One of the Pattr arguments, the first one, remember, was what we're calling it. So this is channel 1, so let's call it CH1. And the second argument was what port it was receiving on. So we're going to have this one receive on port 5000 to match this send up here. Okay, and if you recall, what we did is we just had whatever that first argument was, the receive for that movie player came out of that. So that is going to be channel 1, CH1. So the movie image should come out of here. Let's put a jit.p window to see it. Okay, we're actually going to have to go ahead and let's open and look at this. Actually, here is the best way to do it. Right click on where we've instantiated this external, and it's all working for everybody right now. Yeah, great. And go to object down here, And no, I thought there was a way to say new view of. Maybe you have no. Oh well. Object open original effects player. That's fine. And so this is our what we're looking at, right? So if we want this to, we need to actually tell this movie player what file to play. Yeah, and that was, we can send messages to it with the ch1 underscore input. So send ch1 underscore input. We can send a read message. Let's just do countdown. I'm spelling it wrong. Down.move. And we're still not seeing anything. Why? Because we're not sending bangs to this movie player, so it's not outputting frames. So let's put a Q metro. And remember, you don't have to put the interval. You can also put time arguments like 30 hertz. And that will work also. Or 60 hertz. That will give us 30 bangs a second, and we can send this into the input as well, and that will go to that movie player. And there, now it's outputting. And just to make sure it's working, let's send this message to it: read ozone.move, and you should see a calico cat. You don't have ozone.move? Does countdown work for you?
No, I don't have any. Just a little black box.
Did you send your Q metro into this?
Yep. The toggles.
All right, then you probably messed up something with your gates down here. Let me open up your effects player.
Yeah, so
Is anybody's working?
Mine's working.
mine is.
Okay, so it can work. Yeah, what's going on?
Right there.
So what is open?
Spacing.
Yeah, what receives.
Hover over your output of each of
Okay.
those gates and see
I gotta remember that.
no, the gate. So that's open. That's going in the input. That's right.
And the mouse is going.
You're not using the effects right now. The next one down. What's it going? Is it open? It's open. The next one down. It's open. Okay, so that should be working.
That's
What we don't have. Put it.
We
Go
did
ahead
this
and
in
put
just
a key window. Oh,
Yeah,
wait, no,
okay.
we're not going to be receiving
That's
anything. This.
justified.
It's just all the little details, man.
What's different here? Do you? Oh, you know what? You might have a rate of 0. Yeah, you haven't sent a rate. Make sure you're sending a value for your rate. Try that.
change this, right?
Change the slider.
Oh,
Do
I see,
something
I see,
above
I see.
0. Maybe that. No. Channel 1 input. What did you instantiate?
So it says that those don't have periods after them, but I don't have.
Where is it reading this file from?
Where you have it loaded. It should be. It's
And then just looking through the whole computer for it?
no. It's reading it from. It's actually in the show package contents.
Okay, so it's in there. So it just looks for it in the apps. Got it.
Yeah. It will also
Which I know
look.
they're there.
It will also look in whatever directory you have this patch saved in.
So it'll look
Go to
in both of them.
Yeah, so you can save. What I usually do if I have content that goes with the thing, I put all the content in the same directory. But you just have to use the file name. But I don't know why yours is. Is yours the same way and yours is over
I was gonna
here?
say it's probably over here.
Okay, this will take a while. Wow.
I mean, I can try and show it.
just a message.
Testing right now.
I don't know why it's not working. It should work. The only thing we can do is add a file. Go back to your simple effects player and add a
Well, that might not be necessary.
add the file functionality so we can test it out.
Okay, you probably do.
Like right now, just add a key window over here.
Wait a minute, is that R pound or R space pound? And then is there a space between the pound and the one?
Send the message into it.
Oh.
Let's read. I'm trying to find out if
Let's
it's
save this.
file.
Let's save this and let's go back to the
Hey, just the
It was
space,
the
just the space. Thank you.
Okay.
Let's, yeah, it's usually, yeah, a lot of times it's the
so
space. Did you click on the read movie player?
Yay, thank you very much.
Sometimes
Yours is
awful, like,
I
Max
just
window,
put
but
them
it
in space in the wrong spot.
In the other program I'm
No
learning,
such
also on
object.
Wednesdays,
Read no such
like
object.
sometimes I like forget a semicolon and I'm like, why is the whole thing not working? And then I'll be like,
Respawn your
colon
JIT movie
versus
object.
semicolon or
Yeah.
something.
no, it's just like
When
a
you
next
get that
semicolon.
movie object.
Colons don't really do anything on this
Yeah.
other
Which
program.
other program?
Double click in it to
Chuck.
change its title,
Which
to
I'm
add
kind of
arguments to
currently
it.
failing
Add a
because I fell
space to the end
vastly
and then
behind.
the top of it, and then
Chuck, it's
take
in the
the
music
space out.
tech school. It's like mostly sound,
So
or
that
it's all
reinstantiates
sound
that.
based, so it's like
That's right.
music,
Go
which I
ahead
never see
and
myself
try read
using.
ozone
That's like the predecessor to interface design,
Oh, okay.
which
Maybe,
is kind
oh,
of
you
why I
need
wanted to
bangs,
get.
you need a metro also. I don't know why this isn't working.
But it's more text based versus.
But,
this is-
clear these messages. Hit the read ozone again. Alright, you don't get, it should work now.
But it
You use
says
7.3.
This is flashing every once in a while. Like it just did a little flash.
Set your rate to 1.
This look exactly.
Or something close to it.
This-
No,
this would be
yeah,
fine,
I guess
like,
it's- no, you
It could be in the other.
somewhere about halfway up.
I set mine to 1.
Okay, yeah.
Scales, that's fine.
Oh, you set this to 1?
Oh wait, no, I didn't set. I didn't
Yeah,
set this
no,
one to 1. I didn't
yeah,
set this
yeah.
to anything. We set those others.
Yeah.
So this is actually still to.
I don't know why yours is on. I don't know.
Turn it on.
It's set to 128.
Yes.
Did you press
It
it?
was space.
Great.
I'm using space.
Where was your space?
Toggle
It
off.
was
There we
here.
go.
It was
You just forgot to hit push the read. That's it,
What?
yeah.
There's some space here.
What was it
Oh.
say?
Original pack.
Do you have
It doesn't
a
have to
receipt? Do you have
click
an extra
the read
space in this?
so that it will
receipt? Where's your
activate.
receipt?
Oh, you
In
didn't
the- No,
take
I'm
the
sorry,
read.
in the other.
I typing
in your-
read,
in your
but
place.
I'm typing and leave it there, but you have to click it.
No.
Oh.
Why?
All a bunch of little steps.
What are we
Oh
sending
my
to over
God.
here?
So many.
Where are we sending bangs over here? Are we sending bangs? Go back to this.
Oh wait, send channel 1.
That should work. I'm out of options for you guys. I'm sorry. That should work. If you must have done an error somewhere along the way. I don't have time to tease it out, unfortunately. It's already 2 o'clock. All right, so, and we haven't even gone through last week's shit.
Oh yeah, that's stuff.
Okay, great. So, for most of you, that's working. What were we doing? I lost my train of thought. We were controlling over here.
It doesn't work. I can't explain. I don't know the software. I can't fix the problem.
Yeah, I know. Well, I can't go through. You made a mistake somewhere. Is why it's not working. I can't go through every single. See if someone. Yeah, I don't know. I could save it really quick, and you could load it off the website to get this.
Yeah, if possible.
Can I just start this?
For fuck's sake. Okay, 1 second.
That's fine. That's easy enough to do. That'd be great. Then we can at least keep going with it.
You make the clock go backwards.
Nope.
That's gonna take forever. All right.
Super speeding things coming up.
We have a lot to cover.
Let's see. Here we go.
Sorry.
load 7.1 simple interface and also effects player into your projects folder and then open it. Okay, so this is one slider that we are using just for the rate. If we want now, we can make more sliders to affect the other effects. So let's copy this stuff. We'll just put it over here, and we're going to, this will be, let's see. So this will be the sliders for contrast and so forth, for brightness, contrast, and saturation. So we want to have a message actually here that says contrast $1.
Shouldn't it be brightness first?
Sorry, you're right. Brightness. And then copy all of this. And this one will be what is it? Brightness, contrast, contrast. And this one will be saturation. And you'll notice that they don't pop up with you this time because there's no BR COSA object close to it. So that's why it doesn't know what you're going to do with those messages. We could just send these out, but remember we have to route it by our index symbol. So we also have to, before sending these out, we have to add our index symbol, which was BR COSA. So we're prepending BR COSA. And now we'll put the word BR COSA be in front of whatever these messages are sending out. And that would be how we do that. But in our effects player, remember we had that enable stuff. Right, this stuff here. And we need the ability to enable these effects. So let's add a let's see. Oh, I know what we can do. Actually, we can just yeah, it's just be another one of these. So in your original thing, add the word after saturation, add the word enable. So now we're adding another option here of things that we can route for, and we're routing for the word enable. Put a toggle after that, and then put the message enable. No, I'm sorry, you don't even need the message. Just send this over to the other toggle. Actually, you don't even need this toggle. Sorry, I'm confusing the hell out of you. So you added the word enable in this route, and then we're taking this second to last outlet, which is routes output if the input matches enable, and we're sending it to this toggle over here, which is going to enable this BR COSA, right? If this gets turned on, then it's enabled. If it's off, then it goes out the other outlet and bypasses it. So then all we have to over here is send the message enable $1 and a toggle up here to enable this effect. Send that out, BR code, send that into the prepend. Oh, make sure you resave this thing. If you open 7.2 like I did, make sure you resave it as and save over your effects player patch. Replace that. remember we're not loading 7.2. 7.2 is for your notes. We're loading. We saved it. We had 7.2. And then we saved that as whatever you wanted to call it. I called it effects player, all one word. Right. So this is the most important one. Make sure that this effects player has this enable stuff in it right here. Do you have that? You have effects player, right, Trey?
I have a simple effect. You should just keep going. Like, really, you should just keep going. I'm gonna have to.
I also wrote simple effects.
I have a simple.
Okay,
effects
yeah.
player, and it
Whatever
counts,
you
right?
call it, that's what, yeah. Make sure that whatever you call it has this in its route, this enable, and that gets sent over to this gate over here. Okay? Whatever it is you call it. And then resave it. And that will automatically update these. You don't need to reinstantiate that or anything. So now, if we enable this, we can send the different effects, brightness, and now I'm able to get that, get control of that. And there's brightness, and contrast. I mean, this is a pretty, well, I guess I can get negative contrast. That's nice. And saturation. Does that work for everybody?
Yes.
Great. So that's how you can use, you can have these external engines to drive your video and use the model view controller paradigm to control the different effects on those. If we really wanted to get crazy with this, we could, and I just don't have time to do it, otherwise I would. We could set it up like we looked at on our previous Pattr, our 7.1. We could set it up so that these 3 sliders would be one set of sliders that would change their names based on what effect you're using. So like we would have BR Cosa in this list right here instead of zoom and blur. We'd have BR Cosa and JIT Rhoda or whatever. And that would change this prepend down here to prepending the word Rhoda or prepending the word BR Cosa, and would also set these different messages so that the sliders get these same messages. That would be what I would do if I had another hour, but I don't. So we're going to move on because we're going to learn something even better today than this method. So let's, are you guys, do you all have this? Save this as simple interface. And we're going to make a new, we're going to move on to class 8 stuff. So make a new Pattr. I'm going to open something first. I wanted to show you guys 8.0. Nah, never mind. We don't have time for it. All right, make a new Pattr. You can close this one. And we're going to learn a new way to send those values instead of having a whole bunch of route objects. And we're going to use, it's called Pattr storage. Pattr storage really gives you great functionality to set and recall values for multiple different objects. And it really works as like whatever your values that you have in all the boxes in the patch, you can dynamically store the values of all those boxes and recall them. And what you can also do, which you can't do with any other object, is you can interpolate and fade between values. So if you had like a rate in scene 1 of 1 on this movie player, and then in scene 2 you have a rate of 1.6, you can have it slowly slide up from 1 to 1.6 over how many seconds you want to do. So let's look at the Pattr object. So, well, actually, let's go through a kind of an evolution of different ways to store numbers. You don't have to. I want to show you this, but you don't have to make it. This is one way that I saw somebody do something once, which is probably the least efficient way to do it. So I wanted to show you guys this, and this will be on the website for your notes, but you don't have to waste the time doing it. So he had a bunch of numbers over here, a bunch of buttons over here, messages over here for scene 1, 2, and 3, and then had that going through those triggering a number of values for his different objects. So he had like buttons down here and some ints to, oops, not an int number box, a int, an I, to store the values, and a gate to route where the values were going. And that's kind of what we saw, for the stuff that I just went over. And then a number over here, and a number to select which gate outlet it's going to. And then these were all getting sent to this number box. So there was like 5 of them. I'm only going to connect 3 of them right now. So this totally works, but it's completely inefficient. But let me show you how it works. So the way he was doing this before, this unknown person, was you would set your gate to where you wanted this to be stored, whether it be in the 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. Set that. So if I wanted to set a value for scene 1, and basically you'd have to have this on every single object that you wanted to recall these values for. But it would work. It would just be really inefficient. So set the gate on this. So I'm storing for scene 1, and I'm going to put in my value now. And I'm like, okay, that's the value I want for scene 1. Now I'm going to change this to scene 2, and I'll put a different value in over here. And then I'll change this to scene 3. Come on, I can't scroll. 3. Oh my God, 3. Type it. And put a different value in there. And then I could by hitting these numbers, I'm recalling what I stored each time. Which always ended up being 76 for some reason, but whatever. I'm going to move on. I think I have to set the thing to 0 in between. Yeah, anyway. So that's one way. Then the other, last week we looked at call. Oh, I know why it didn't come out. Is I didn't hook these up. That's why none of those values were coming out. There they are. They're all there. Right? I ended up resetting one of them to 79. But anyway, yeah. So that's one way of doing it, but not a very good way. The other one we looked at the other day was call. You guys should go ahead and patch along with me on this one because I think a review of call is good to have. C-O-L-L, call. And that's short for collect. And you send call messages to store values. So if I wanted to say I was storing like 2 different ints for something, a float for something, and then like a symbol for like what movie I'm going to load something. I could have the first number is the index symbol and then whatever data you want to store under that index symbol. So I'm just going to use a 1 for my index symbol. And then let's put in some data. It doesn't matter what it is. 22, 23, 101.3, and a symbol like test a dot move. And then, actually, we don't want that. And then the same thing, but we need to put it under a different symbol and some different data. So start with a 2, and then put some different numbers. 45, 20, negative 34.3. Test b dot move. Hook those up to the call. Push 1. Push 2. Then you can recall those by a, since we stored it under numbers, we could just put an int number box over here. And if we send a 1, so then put a message down here, send that to the output. If you send a 1 to the input of this call, lock it, there we go, 1, it retrieves all of those values. And if you double click on the call, you can see what your values are here. You could also use this screen or another text editor and then paste in the values to compose your queues. Like you get the pattern pretty quickly. You just need the index symbol and then comma and then all your different various values, and then you end with a semicolon. So it's completely possible, and I've programmed entire shows that way that all ran off of time code. And so our index symbol was the time code. And so as we had the movie players spitting out time code, subtitle files were chasing that time code.
How did you send it through the call to message?
How did I send this? So you send the number to the which index you want to receive in the call. See? So here, let's do this. Let's add a U menu. Okay, and then go open up Inspector for the U menu, and go down here to menu items, where it says empty. Get rid of the empty and put in scene 1, comma to separate them. Scene 2. Then those are just symbols. It doesn't matter. We're not going to actually use the symbols. We're going to use the item number. Add a +1, right? Because the item number of the first thing is 0, and we stored ours under 1, so we're going to add 1 to this, and then send that into that. So now we can say scene 1, and it loads that up, and here's our values for scene 1. And scene 2, and there's our values for scene 2. Now, if we wanted to break these out so that we can actually send them to different objects, we just need to unpack that message. So make an unpack. And what were our kinds of data? We had 2 ints, a float, and a symbol. Int, float, symbol, IIFS. Send the call's output to the unpack, and int box, float box, and a message to display our symbol. Actually, let's do read, right? Because this is the kind of message we'd send. Read $1. Hook those up. Now go ahead and using the U menu, select scene 1, and there's all your values. And actually pass this read message, pass it into another message box on its right inlet so we can see what it's sending. So scene 2, you can see it's composed this message, read test b.move. Scene 1, it's reading test a.move, and then here's our different values that we could send to various parameters of different effects or rates or whatever we wanted to use those values for. So that's great. That one is way better, way more efficient than this. It's really easy to send these values to many different objects, but it's really hard to store your values. You either have to do these series of buttons to record your values. You might be able to create some kind of system to compose these messages easier, but still, or you might just do it in your call's text editor. But it's just really, it's clunky to input this data. But getting it out is easy. So I still use call occasionally if I don't have that much stuff to input. But if I have a ton of different parameters that I'm inputting, then I prefer to use Pattr. So let's look at that. So Pattr is a way of storing. It's a way of binding to user interface objects and sharing their values and storing and recalling their values. So in order to store patterns, first you need a Pattr storage object. Pattr, P-A-T-T-R, storage. And then we need to give it a name. So let's a name for its presets. So let's call it my awesome presets. Okay. If you double click on the Pattr storage, it opens up the client objects window, and that will list whatever objects you have bound to the Pattr storage system. Right now, there's nothing in there because we haven't bound anything. So let's do that. Let's make we're going to make a Pattr for file recall for a movie player, and we're also going to make a Pattr for rate of movie playback. So let's add a Pattr object, which is just P-A-T-T-R. And then we have to give it a scripting name, something that we can know what this is. And in this case, we're going to use it for file recall, so why not call it file _ recall. Okay, now if you open up the help file for this and then go to bind, it can tell you how you can use messages to bind it to something that you have named, or it just binds automatically if you have it attached to the second outlet of the Pattr. And in this case, that's what we're going to do. We're just going to have a int and bind that to the second outlet of this Pattr where it says bind to connection. So now this is the file. Now this is now bound to this. And if you double click on Pattr storage, now you see, now there's this file recall. Right now there's no data stored in it. It's stored as, there's nothing. It says 0. That's what its current state is actually. If I change this to 54 and look in here, now you can see it's dynamically kept track of that. We haven't stored anything yet though. We're going to do that in a second. So let's use this number to choose something from a U menu. Make a U menu and go to items, menu items down here, edit your menu items, and we're going to add chilies.jpg. That's one of your sample content, comma. What's the other one we have? Oh, I don't know. Just do countdown.move. Say OK. Okay, send this number into the inlet of this U menu. So now if this is 1, that should be countdown.move. If it's 0, it should be chilies.jpg. We're going to send the output, the second outlet of this chilies, which is the middle one, which is the menu item evaluated as a message, right? Because we want that actual chilies.jpg, not a number of its position. And then send that through a message that's read $1. Remember, $1's a wildcard. So now $1 will be replaced by chilies.jpg, and we send that into a movie player, which I don't have yet. JIT.movie. Okay, let's add a Q Metro over here. 30 hertz. Toggle. Attach that to the movie player. Let's put a JIT.p window. Okay. Now, if we want to store these, so go ahead and make sure this works. Turn on your Q Metro, click on Chili's again and make sure there's a Chili's there. Click on countdown, make sure you get the countdown. So we want the ability to store this file recall number in our Pattr storage and then recall that. If you double click on this, you get what's called the client window, which shows you what objects are bound to this Pattr storage. And so far, we only have file recall, of course. And then there's another thing you can send to. You can send a message called storage window. And that will open the other function, which is the storage, which is the file recall and value recall and storage. And that shows you what values you have stored in what slots. Right now, we only have one slot, and that's file recall, and we don't have anything stored in it yet. So you can use that message storage window to look at your storage window. You can use the message client window to look at the client window, or you can just double click on the Pattr storage object to look at the client window. So if we want to store values, we have to give it similar to call. We have to give it an index number or symbol under which to store those values. And then it stores everything that it sees in this client window, which right now, again, we only have the one thing. But it will store those values for under whatever index we give it. But let's keep it simple. Instead of using symbols, let's give it numbers. So we're going to have an new object, an int object. This is to store an integer and then output it with a bang. Add an int box up here and a bang over here. This is so that I could just use an integer box, but then it would always output when I changed its value. And instead, I only want to have it output from this when I hit the bang. So as soon as I hit the bang, then it will send out whatever value I have here. And then I want to, so that will send out the index symbol. And then we need to prepend the word store. Prepend store. Okay, and then we're also going to do the exact same thing, just duplicate this stuff and change the prepend from store to recall. Whoops, can't spell today. All right, so let's change this now. Change this number box under store to 1 and click the bang to store it. Oh, I forgot to connect my recall. Go ahead and make sure your recall is connected. Now double click inside your, actually click on your storage window now. And now you see it's added this 1 up here, that's your index symbol. And the value that we have in that box, which is 0 right now. Change it to 1 up here. And now down here, so that was scene 1. Now we're going to do scene 2. Change this to scene 2, to 2 for a scene 2. And bang it again. And now double click your storage window to see there. Now you have a 0 and a 1. And if I recall, change this to recall 1, bang. and now it's recalling that file. And if I go to 2, if I recall 2, bang, now it's recalling that. Let's add some more functions.
That didn't work for me.
Huh? All right.
I
Open your storage window. Do you have anything in it?
Yes,
Just a 1.
but just the one. Yeah.
Did you change your value up here and then store it again?
Yep. From 0 to 1, and then banged it again.
Okay, so yeah, let me make sure, let's go over the process, make sure we got that. So,
Oh wait, no wait. Yeah, go ahead.
let's start with 0 up here, Chili's.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay,
I'm not
set
seeing
this
Chili's.
on this store. What? You're not seeing any Chili's?
I'm
Do you
not
have?
seeing any Chili's. It says Chili's.j,
Uh-huh.
but it's still the clock counting down.
Right, it's probably the same issue you had before with your. Oh, you haven't. Did you send this to the RAID from your U menu?
Yeah, it's coming from the middle outlet to the read, from the read to the JIT.movie, from the JIT.movie to the P window, and I have a clock counter.
And what does your Max window say? Does it say can't read or something like that? To Command M?
Whoa, there's a lot of red.
Yeah, well,
Can't find files Chili's.jpg.
all right. Does Chili's work for other people? Maybe this is an older file.
Chili's works for me.
Your countdown will work? All right, well, what's another movie that does play on yours? Do you know of any other movie? Like B-Ball, does that play? All right, so just edit your thing and put B-Ball instead of Chili's. In fact, everybody put B-Ball because I think that will be better for this next part. So go into your U menu up here and go to and open the inspector and then go to the menu items and change chili's.jpg to bball.mov. Reload bball.mov and make sure it plays. Okay, great.
There we go.
Is it working now?
Yeah.
Great.
B-ball.
And when you recall, and so now, let's start all over again. Let's, we're going to, not all. Let's make sure that you guys understand the process of how this is stored, right? So you set the value that you want to store in your box. So this is B-ball right now, 0.
I'm sorry, I can't get out of Chili's. And it's not even in my menu anymore.
Just try toggling and untogling a few times. Work for me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. And so now we have this value set for our Q1. Make sure you change this here under this prepend store stuff. Change that to 1, right? Because we're going to be storing scene 1, and then hit the bang. That will record this 0 under that scene 1. Then go ahead and change this up here to 1, and that should load countdown now. Change this down here under the prepend store, change that to 2, right? Because we're storing scene 2 now. Bang that. Now look at your storage window. And you should see a 0, which is 0, a 1 and a 2 up here. And these are the values that you've stored under each of those slots. We stored 0 under slot 1, under symbol 1, and we stored 1 under symbol 2. And then recalling them is over here. If I recall 1, hit bang, it goes back to B-ball. And recall 2, bang, it goes to countdown.
Jackson,
Yeah.
mine works, but my data storage looks different from yours. I don't have the slot for like 1 and 2.
Yeah. I just have file recall. That's all
Yeah.
I have.
It's gotta be a thing with like the order of the bangs.
I don't think so.
What's different?
Store, make sure you have store. Is that what? Yours isn't storing anything?
No, it totally works. Just the data storage looks different.
What looks different? This?
Yeah, mine just looks like that.
So that's the client objects that if you're double clicking, if you want to see the storage window, double clicking it will not work. You have to send the message storage window to see the storage window.
Oh.
Okay?
Okay.
Is that what you were talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Great. Can we move on? Is somebody at a dead stop period for some reason? Like, what's going on?
In my storage, it just says file recall, but there's no 1, 2, or anything.
Did you press all the buttons a million times? 'Cause that helps.
Just hit all
Do
the
it a
buttons.
lot.
That's what I try to do. Just like,
Bang. Now change this to 1. Change that to 2. Bang. Now storage window.
Class 8, right?
That's bizarre. Do you have another file open somewhere?
There's this. No, just these 3.
So, it's not storing. All right, let's see. Let's try sending a.
Oh. I mean,
Just a test message. So let's store something under green. All right. So actually, this is what the message that we're composing. Store green.
just thinking so much.
Wait. No, that's right. File recall. And your does file recall show up on here? Windows. I can't. I don't know. How do you override the lock in Windows? Or
I
can you
haven't
not?
figured that out.
Oh, okay. So yeah, that's okay. That's there. That's its current data. All right. So the storage window. It's just not storing anything. There it is. There's now. So something is wrong over here. That's why. You have a message that's pre-penned store. It needs to be an object that's pre-penned store. What? Yeah, again, use the same thing. You said you have a message that says pre-penned store. That needs to be an object called pre-penned and then store. So delete. Yeah, exactly. Pre-penned store. Okay? Great. 2:30. We're going to get somewhat close to where we're supposed to be. All right. So that's cool. You can, oh wait, no, we were going to add another. Right now all we have is this. We're going to add rate as well. Right now we just have the file recall. So let's add a Pattr way of storing the rate of this movie playback. So we just add another Pattr up here. Pattr, and then we're going to call this one playback rate underscore rate. And if you double click your client window, now we see that is now an option. It's one of the client objects in the Pattr storage. And we just need to bind that to a float, add a float down here. Second, the middle outlet to this float, now it's bound to that. And send that to a rate message, rate $1. And send that to the JIT movie. So changing this will change its rate. Okay, and so now let's go ahead and go ahead and recall scene 1. Go to 1, recall, change the rate to something. Okay, and then where it's restore 1. So go over here to 1. We're going to store 1 again, and hit button and hit the bang. Now if you open that storage window, you can see that we've stored the this playback rate under 1. We haven't stored it under 2 yet, so let's do that. So let's now recall 2, And the reason why I'm recalling in between storing is so that I don't have to redo this value that I've already set. Change the rate to something different. Let's make the countdown be a count up. Change this to negative 0.6. And let's change this to 2 and store it under 2. Now if we look at our storage window, now we have values for 1 and 2. And now go ahead and let's try the recall. Recall 1, bang, we get it, that movie with that playback rate. We're going to recall scene 2 now, and we get this movie with this playback rate. This is basically the same kind of functionality as you get with Isadora scenes. Yeah. And in just a second, I think we do have enough time, thank God. We're going to look at interpolating between values, which is what you do in Isadora, what you can do in Isadora also with scenes. So that's cool. Let's save this. Save this as class, what did we call it, 8.1?
We never got around to naming it.
Oh,
We call it class 8.
yeah, okay.
Active action.
Call it Pattr intro. In your class 8, oh, actually I'm putting it in the wrong place. Max 7 projects class 8. All right, let's make a new file. Close this one. It's going to ask you if you want to save your presets. That's kind of a cool feature in case you forget. You can save your presets. Go ahead and let's try it. Let's do that. Save the presets. Make sure you're saving it in the same places where you saved your file. And it will just save it as whatever you named your Pattr storage, whatever you name that, it will give you that file name by default. And it saves it as a JSON file, which is kind of an XML type of data file, but the Pattr storage can read that. Let's make a new file now. Whoops, I'm in Finder. And we're going to look at auto Pattr. Make a new Pattr storage object first. And we can call this the same thing. My awesome presets. I'm curious, I wonder if it, no, it doesn't. Great. And now what we're going to do, what are we going to do? We need an auto Pattr object. The auto Pattr object doesn't need to be attached to anything. It just needs to be in your patch. And what this does, auto Pattr allows you to add objects to the Pattr storage using scripting names in each object instead of attaching it to a Pattr object. Remember what we did last time? Each of those float boxes, we had to have a Pattr above it and connect it with the middle inlet. This way we can actually just have the float by itself and we don't have to have it attached to a Pattr object. It basically just automatically attaches an invisible Pattr object to all of your UI objects inside your patch. So once we have one of those, then we have the ability to set a scripting name for each UI object. So let's make a simple movie player real quick. A Q Metro again. I'm gonna do 30 hertz. A toggle. JIT.movie. I'm gonna at volume 0, so I don't have to hear it. And then we're going to have, actually, U menu. I was going to say, if you still have your old one open, just grab and copy the U menu that we just used before. But it's only 2 things, so it'll only take a second to make it again if you want. Just go down here, make sure you go to your items and edit this and say bball.mov, comma, countdown.mov. Okay. And a read $1. All right, so now we can read, let's send this to a JIT P window. Turn on your Metro, read B-ball. Okay, it's working, great. Now, if we want to get access to this Pattr storage object right here, we just need to give it a scripting name now. And that's down here in your, if you open up the inspector, there's something called var name or scripting name. Var name, scripting name right here. And we haven't said anything yet, but so we have to do that. So double click in here and let's give it a name. We're going to call this one, what did we call it last time? We called it file recall. So let's call it file underscore recall. And make sure your U menu here in your inspector has make sure that it has Pattr stores symbol right here. Make sure that's checked. Otherwise, it will only store the index number and not the symbol, and we want it to actually store this symbol. Right here, Pattr mode, Pattr store symbol. Yeah, if you can't see that, make sure you have all up here clicked. That will show you all. If you only have basic, it might not be in that list.
And it's, sorry, where was it one more time?
It's about halfway down. Make sure you have your U menu highlighted. It's called Pattr store symbol.
What was the var name?
var name, that's right here. Scripting name. It might not say var name if you don't have that. Yours might look like this. I like to show my attributes because then I know I can send it a message var name with a new variable name, and I know what the message is to send to it. Okay, so we have that, and now let's make another one for rate, for file rate. So we just need a float and a rate message. And we want to store this rate as well. So let's, down here under its var name or scripting name, we can call this, what did we call it before? Playback underscore rate. Okay, and then seriously, let's just open the one we had open before this Pattr intro and grab all of this stuff down here. We don't really need that P window, but whatever. And copy the whole storage and stuff. Oh, don't copy the Pattr storage object. Sorry, just the stuff that we're using to interface with the Pattr storage. Grab all that. Close that, and then paste it in over here so we don't have to rebuild all this. Send your storage window, your client window, your store, and your recall. Hook those up. Now let's click on the client window. Let's make sure that both our rate and our file recall are there, and there they are. And now, let's see. Now we're going to store, let's see, store scene 1. So put a 1 here. Change it up here. Change your movie to something else. Set a rate. Make sure you set a rate above 0. 1 for this one. And now I'm going to store it. And now I'm going to change my rate to a negative rate and change it to the other movie. And change my store symbol to 2 and bang that. And now I've stored both of those and in the same way we did before. And I can recall them the same way. Recalling 1, bang to recall it. Recalling 2, bang to recall it. Have that? Great. So we're going to start by making, now with the time we have left, which is about, we have about 12 minutes left. We're going to start, I don't think we'll finish, but we're going to start making a mixer interface using Pattr storage and kind of the model view controller paradigm to set us up for what your homework will be eventually. I don't think I'm going to make your homework not due next week, but do the following week. But eventually what we're going to do is we're going to redo your 4-channel mixer using Pattr storage, unique sends and receives, and have the ability to have different effects that you can turn on and off. Oh, we didn't save this? Sorry, let's save this. This is 8.2, Auto Pattr. All right, so the first thing we need to do is build, and it's telling me, do I want to save this? Whatever. First thing we need to do is build our interface. I mean, our movie player. Just like we did before where we had that simple movie player. Let's make a new file, new Pattr. And this is going to be, this is actually not a movie player. It's just the values for the movie player. What do we want the ability to do? We want the ability to change files using like a U menu. Let's make a U menu. Actually, let's grab that U menu from before so I don't have to keep doing that. All right, got our U menu. We're going to have a slider for the mixer. And we're going to have a float for the rate. Okay, now we're going to send each of these to a message, and we need to make sure that they get a unique title. So we're going to use Pattr arguments, #1 underscore file name space $1. So we'll use this this #1 file name as our index symbol. So we're sending the, make sure it's the middle outlet. Evaluate it as a message. And then duplicate that, rate, change this file name to rate, and attach the slider to that. Duplicate that, and change the rate to, whoops, molt. I got them back. I got them mixed up. Multiplication for the slider. So actually delete that from the slider. You want this float box to go to the rate and the slider to go to this one that we're calling multiplication. Okay? And then just send these out an outlet. We're going to instantiate this as a B patcher, so let's clean it up. Let's just select all your patch cords by doing an option drag and doing a Command K to lock them, or go into Object, Hide on Lock. Then when you lock it, you won't see those. Make sure you move everything over to the edge, the upper corner, so that when we load this B patcher, you won't have a bunch of margin space.
What was that one that had again? Something K?
It's Command K on a Mac, or you can go to Object and go to Hide on Lock after you have your patch cords highlighted. And then when you lock it, your patch cord should disappear. And save this now and call it something that we can instantiate easy. So let's, no spaces, make sure not to put any spaces. Let's just call this 8.3 underscore movie vals dot maxpat, or just movie vals. Make sure you're saving it in your projects folder. Okay, you can close it. New file, new patcher. We're gonna instantiate those as B patchers now. B patcher. Go into the inspector for this B patcher and go down and change the file. And choose 8.3 movie vals. There it is. And just move this. You don't have to show the outlet, just show this stuff. Okay, we're going to need to give it, make sure, highlight this B patcher and go into your inspector again, and we have to give it an argument, remember? So let's just call it 1. Now if we right click on this and we say object and say new view of movie vals, we can see that, and we unlock it, we can see that those are getting replaced with 1 underscore file name, so forth. Oh, you know what we forgot? The whole reason why we're doing this was to do Pattr storage, and I didn't put any Pattr storage objects in this. Open your movie vals again, and you won't have to change anything in what we've done because it's an external, so everything just tracks all your changes. And we just need to add an auto Pattr in there. But the thing is auto Pattr, you have to either give it a name, or it will create a unique ID that we'll have no idea what that's going to be beforehand. So let's give it a name, but use our patcher argument to give it a unique name that we can predict what it's going to be. So we'll just do #1 to do our patcher argument, underscore, and then let's call this control vals, underscore vals. No spaces. Make sure there's no spaces. Now save this again. So now it will automatically have an auto pattern that's called 1_control vowels.
What was it? Say that again? I just missed that last auto pattern. What was the end of it?
Auto pattern #1_control vowels. Okay. So then we need another auto pattern in this patch. This will automatically drill down through whatever subpatchers you have, or B patchers or external patchers. And if they have auto patterns inside of them, it will add those values to this parent patch. It automatically drills down to whatever subpatches or B patchers you're using. So that's great. So let's go ahead. So if you double click on this auto pattern, sorry, I know what I did wrong. Not auto pattern. Don't double click on that. We needed a pattern storage, right? Yeah. Pattern storage. My awesome presets. There they are. There's 8.3 movie vowels, and there's the thing that we hooked up, that file recall. Although I think I should see more than that. Did we only hook one of them up, or did we only give one of those a unique ID? Well, we only have a couple more minutes. Well, let's look at that while we have time. Reopen your file for this. What was it again? 8.3 movie vowels. Did we set scripting names for these? I bet you we didn't. Oh, we did. All right, no, that's for that. Okay, hold on. Does this have a scripting name? No, it doesn't. Okay, so that's why it didn't show up, because we didn't set a scripting name. So that is, what did we call the first one? We only set a scripting name on one of them, and we called it file_recall. So we're going to call this one, that doesn't matter really. We can call it, what are we using it for? We're using it for multiplication. So we'll just call it the slider, mult slider. Mult_slider. And then click on your rate float box down here and add a scripting name for that. And we'll call this rate underscore. I should just call it rate. Who cares? Rate. Now save this again. Okay, your changes should automatically track. Did I delete? No, there it is. And now if you open the client objects, you see now I have all those different values. I can even do more than one. Duplicate this B patcher and now change the argument, patcher argument for this. Where is that? I can't see it. There we go. Arguments. Edit. This one we'll call it 2. And now you can see one of them is coming over here and the other is coming over here. What? What should have file recall? Your scripting name for your U menu should have the file recall. So in your movie vowels, right here, this U menu should have file underscore recall as its scripting name. Just want to check one thing real quick, and we're pretty much out of time. We'll continue on with this next week.
Should we say this as class 8.4?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, no, save this as 8.3 because it's part of 8.3, and save it as 8.3 interface. Save it as 8.3 interface, and we'll just continue from here next week. So what we're eventually going to be, what we're eventually going to build. This is the building blocks for your final required project, which is to create a 4-channel mixer with effects that you can that uses MVC and everything. So we'll have this. This will be the slider for channel 1, and then we'll have another one here with slider for channel 2, and so forth. And then you'll be able to change what the sliders do using the call or using Pattr, and have those sliders change parameters of effects that you can turn on and off. But we'll just pick up with it the way it is next week. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackson.
Yeah, this we're in the nitty-gritty now. There was one thing I wanted to show you, but I decided we didn't have enough time. You see, I could play it right now on your way out. What was it? 8 intro. Wait, I should be in my recent files. There it is. Where is it? I said open and it didn't open it. Oh well. I am struggling today. I apologize.
Just now. I'm Trey's failing.
Why won't it open the file I'm telling it to open? This is pissing me off.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
This is 8.3 interface. Yeah, no problem. Don't worry about it. Forget it.
Forgotten.
I don't know why it won't open it. I'm telling it to open it, and it just doesn't open. Open recent Pattr. See you later, guys.
So am I caught up in this class now that I've sent you the 4-channel video player?
I haven't looked at your player. You didn't just grab mine and send it to me, did you?
Not a little bit. I can go back and do it this weekend. Yours actually wasn't working for me till I put in send objects underneath the B patchers.
Oh, really? Yeah. I might not have put that in. Yeah. I'll take a look at it. I'll tell you what you need to do.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I fell behind in a few things. Thanks.
Yeah. I guess I must have deleted that Pattr or saved it as something else. Oh well. Don't worry about it. Trey, are you stuck? Do you need some help? No. Oh, okay. Did you that thing I emailed you? Did that work? I mean, where is that?
I couldn't. He's got the user control. I couldn't find it, so I'll pull it off the website. And actually, Lily emailed me hers.
Oh, okay.
So I've got those. Great. But then after that, like right after that, we started something totally new, so it didn't really matter that much anymore.
Yeah. All right.